Hi everyone, welcome to Boom Boom Now. I'm Kate and I am super happy you're here. Thank you so much and thank you for liking, subscribing and sharing. It helps me out a lot. Today we're going to talk about autoimmune flares. What are they? What are some of the common triggers? How do you deal with them? And I'm sharing this for a couple of reasons. I think if you're not diagnosed, sometimes you have these flares, and because you're not working with a rheumatologist or anybody, you may not know how to deal with them. Also, if any of this sounds familiar to you, you may want to go talk to a rheumatologist. So I hope this will be informative. If you do have an autoimmune condition and you haven't really thought about your flares in quite this way, maybe it'll help you too. And I would certainly like to hear from you if you have other ways of dealing with a flare when it happens. I'd really like to hear that because that would help me. So let's get right into it. So a flare, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it's kind of like any other way when you're sick, you talk about a flare up or something like that. It just means that you're having an acute experience of your symptoms. And what this means for someone who has autoimmune is it means that right now, exactly right now, your autoimmune is attacking you. And so it can be really intense. It's really hard to describe how bad it can get because you're being attacked from the inside. It's a horrible, horrible thing. Anyway, just so you know, I have undifferentiated connective tissue disease. The way a flare will come out in me, I'm sort of in the middle of one right now, so you may notice some things about my skin if you look closely enough. Don't look that closely, it's really not necessary. Anyway, some of the symptoms that I go through is my skin will start burning, especially the skin on my feet, but other places as well. It will just burn. And if anything touches the part that's burning, it burns worse and nothing cools it down. I experience mouth ulcers really, really badly. I get eczema, especially on my scalp. I will get cystic skin eruptions. I get extreme pain in all of my joints. I get muscle weakness, especially in my legs. And then all of my mental health symptoms, which are common with autoimmune disease, they all flare up. That can be a greater number of panic attacks. It can be bouts of just prolonged anxiety or depression. So when it happens, it's debilitating. I cannot function very well in normal day-to-day activities in the middle of a flare. Depending on what autoimmune disease you might have, like if these symptoms aren't ringing exact bells for you, but you're aware of those times when everything's bad, this is my body's response to my autoimmune disease. You may have a different kind of thing. You may have GI symptoms. I don't get so much of that, but people with, say, Crohn's disease and some of the other autoimmune diseases, they may very well get extreme GI symptoms. If you have certain symptoms like lupus or even, I think, rheumatoid arthritis, you may actually get swelling in the joints. I don't get as much swelling. It can happen, but it's not common for me. So it can be different things. It depends on your disease, but it also just depends on how your body is responding to your disease. People who have autoimmune disease and rheumatologists will talk about the triggers, and that just means what kinds of things are likely to kick off a flare. So I thought I would go through those. The main one, and I think this is true for pretty much all of the autoimmune diseases, it may not be true for every one of them, and it may not be true for everyone, but I think this is the main trigger for most people, and that's stress. And of course, we live stressful lives. We live in a stressful world, and there's no getting around stress, but learning to manage it. You know, it's a degree thing, right? You know, so a little stress may not trigger a flare, or it may. A lot of stress is almost definitely going to trigger a flare. So learning how to manage your stress is a big thing. If your medication is not working right, so for example, the medication that they tried me on to address the autoimmune disease didn't work for me at all. And in fact, it sent me into an extreme and very long-term flare. And that's when we started learning that chemicals and me are really not compatible. So medications not working right can trigger a flare. Seasonal changes can do it too. And this one's really weird. Or seasonal changes for me are big triggers. Like my body does not like in between. It doesn't like the changing, going from hot to cold weather or cold to hot weather. I have a friend with lupus who literally had to move away from her family home, from her hometown, because they lived in the Bay Area where it tended to be cool and moist, and she couldn't do that weather. She literally just couldn't do it. So she moved to a much drier, warmer place because her body would not accept that weather condition. So seasonal changes and certain weather conditions can do it. Diet is definitely a component, and this I think does vary a lot from person to person. However, sugar is bad. I don't care what anybody, and I mean every kind of sugar pretty much. The fructose, the whatever, all the maple syrup, honey, they're deadly. They are all extremely inflammatory, and they're going to set you off if you have an autoimmune disease almost across the board. There may be some people that don't respond to sugar, but I bet you do. I very much do. And of course, sugar is a problem because it's so addictive. So you have this sort of double whammy coming at you. I'm actually going to do a whole episode on sugar addiction because for me, oh my gosh, that right there is just a nightmare. But it can be different dietary things. Some people are sensitive to gluten. I'm not. Some people are sensitive to the deadly nightshade vegetables, and those are things like tomato and bell pepper and white potato and things like that. So it just depends. I had a food sensitivity test done when I was first diagnosed to help me kind of figure this out. Another trigger is environmental toxins. This just means like chemicals in your environment, bad air quality, those kinds of things. And my body doesn't like chemicals. So for me, this is a gigantic one. I had to get rid of any kind of cleaning products that had chemicals in them. And I use a lot of vinegar and water now and other, essential oils and things like that, rather than sort of the more just mainstream grocery store cleaning products. And the other thing is if you have another infection. So if you've already got, say, the flu, you are likely going to go into a flare because now your immune system is just off the charts. So when we're sick, we're usually doubly sick. If you have an autoimmune disease or suspect you might, and you relate to this idea of having a flare, those times when it's just really bad, there are things you can do that will make it better. There's nothing that's just gonna, click and you're out of it. Remember the old I Dream of Jeannie, show where she just did the little head nod? Nothing's gonna do that, I promise you. Not in anybody with any kind of autoimmune disease, but there are things that can help. So one is eating healthy for whatever your dietary requirements are. You know what triggers you, you know what you should and shouldn't eat, and if you just try to stay in that framework, your life will just be so much easier. And trust me, I have food issues. I love food, I love sugar, oh my goodness. But the more on my dietary guidelines I stay, the better I am and the less pain I'm in. So that's a pretty big incentive to try to stick to your eating plan. Obviously, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, really, really good. Milk products tend to be bad right across the charts. So again, you have to explore your own dietary requirements. I strongly suggest, if you can afford it, to get a food sensitivity panel run. It's a blood test and it will just tell you so much. It's so helpful. The other one, and this is another one of those easier said than done, but I am living proof. I can tell you that when I stick to this, it's night and day difference. Regular physical exercise, whatever that means for you. I'm pretty active when I'm not in a funk and I'm resisting activity. You know how we do, right? You know, I think everybody does this. You get into a funky place, you know activity would be helpful, but because you're in a funky place, you can't motivate yourself to get active. That's the thing with ADHD too. It helps attention deficit problems as well. Get physical, right? Whether it's put on music and just dance around your house, go for a walk, sit in a chair and move if you're less mobile. Engage in some weight-bearing exercises too, to whatever level you're able. Those things really, really help, but especially light aerobic exercise. It's a game changer. Do it on a regular basis. Mental health improves, pain condition improves. Incredible. Get enough rest. Easier said than done. I know it. I don't sleep well for various reasons. The pain conditions, ADHD, all kinds of reasons I don't sleep well. But if you can get yourself resting well and regularly, it will absolutely help. And then, of course, reduce stress and manage stress through things like meditation, prayer, if that's more your thing. Knowing what to say no to, knowing what to turn down and just say, you know, I can't commit to XYZ because it's too stressful for me. I know that sounds weird and it's hard to do, right? But managing your stress, exercise helps, eating helps. So all of these things kind of create a puzzle that locks together, you know, that they all support each other in making you feel better. The other thing I wanted to say is if you haven't tried any of the sleep apps, they even have the ones that you can get the like nighttime light condition. It's like the sun going down and, you know, sounds of the waves or white noise or whatever. If you haven't tried those yet, you might want to try them. I find them to help a lot. Do I sleep perfectly the number of hours that I'm supposed to now? No. But if you haven't tried those, you might want to look into them, and I might review a couple of them because there are several that work differently. There's even one that tells you bedtime stories. So I might do an episode on that. Tell me in the comments below if you would like me to review some of the sleep apps, because I know getting the right amount of rest is really difficult for a lot of people. So anyway, I just thought I would share this information about flares because sometimes, especially if you're not diagnosed and nobody's helped you to understand what you're going through, it can just seem so crazy making. It's like, what is wrong with me? Am I dying? You know, like, am I hypochondriac? What's going on with me? No, you're in a flare. Your immune is attacking you. And there are things you can do to make it better, and there are ways you can manage these kind of acute conditions. If you have other strategies, please share. Again, you're helping me, you're helping each other, and we're really grateful. And I guess that's it. I will see you next time. Thank you so much. I love you guys, and I will talk to you later. Bye.